A new report out just this summer estimates that since 9/11, we've lost more active duty personnel and veterans to suicide than those actually killed in combat. And we're sharing how these men are making a difference to save lives. In part 2 of our story, No Man Left Behind.
It would be something that would pop into my mind oftentimes when people would thank me for my service. That event would pop into my mind, and I would say, like, I don't think I should be thanked.
Each of our veterans have untold stories from war. And while these soldiers are home physically, often their minds have never come home. But these 3 men are telling theirs in public so others can come to light.
We're in this rural area and we roll up on a farmhouse.
We got some intelligence that that there was a vehicle moving through the city, our sector.
And so the soldiers are searching, and they find in his work shed like some wire. Now, we had just lost one of our soldiers, and so the guys were pretty amped up, and they thought this wire has got to be used to make IEDs. And of course, nothing came of it. It was just some wire that was in the shed. You
know, some soldiers shot into the cab, and so, you know, they killed that man in that in that engagement. And then when we opened up the back of the truck, there were no munitions in there.
Babe stories, experiences off the battlefield. But now, there are homes for these stories to just become memories.
The name of our podcast is What We Brought Home.
Mike and Pat recently finished up season 1 of their podcast, where veterans anonymously share combat stories still untold today.
In the environment, it was so hostile, and we had this us versus them mentality. If you're not with us, you're against us type mentality. And I remember seeing the cattle just dropping. That's somebody's livelihood right there.
Babe serves with the local nonprofit Neopat, an organization serving veterans with financial, mental, and physical, and workforce resources. All these efforts, an attempt to rewrite these stories and make sure no man is left behind.
This is more curable than cancer. That's the reality. Is we're making the choice to do nothing. And that's not okay. That's leaving guys like Iz and Pat on the battlefield. And that's not what we do. We don't leave our teammates behind.
We mentioned that Babe had his own stories. The first friend who called to thank Babe for sharing about his own suicide attempt ended up taking his own life. But we got this photo after the interview. And if you see, look really closely, the rainbow that is above him, Babe says that he's sure it's his same friend. I'm trying not to cry. Say thank you one more time. I will never forget leaving them that day, and that picture was not doctored. I sent it to our producer, Megan, and said, because she was there with me, and said, look at this rainbow. And there was no rain. It was perfectly sunny.
Yeah.
There was just, so we're pretty convinced that that was his friend.
You look for those signs. I think this is so important. I love that they did this podcast because it's so easy for us civilians to say things like support our troops or help your veterans, but to know what they actually went through and what they've lived through and where they're having problems is so important to have knowledge of what's inside their own emotions, their brains, and what it is that they need help with. Yeah. So I commend these guys for doing this, and
above and beyond.
Yeah, it's a godsend. All right.